Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that really underpins so much of human society. It's the intricate relationship between faith and morality. A journey, really, into what makes us good, drawing some, pretty surprising insights from the sources you shared with us. We've got a fascinating stack of articles for you today, exploring everything from, ancient scriptures and their profound interpretations, all the way to modern societal observations, and even some of the philosophical traps that can pop up within religious thought. Our mission, like always, is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge to help you understand why morality is, far more complex and maybe more universal than we often think. So what happens when faith and good character weave together, or when they seem to pull apart? Okay, let's unpack this. Our first source, ahlâk.pdf, it jumps right into a core concept from the Quran. This emphasis on man visali amel, which translates to faith and righteous deeds. The text describes these two as like two wings. They enable a person to become a true human. But it's not just two.
The source points out there's this really powerful third element mentioned about 150 times in the Quran, taqwa. And this isn't just a word, it embodies a deep sense of responsibility, respect. What's striking is that these three faith, righteous deeds, taqwa, they aren't just about belief. Fundamentally, they're about living, sustaining life itself.
That's a really crucial point, because it suggests faith isn't, passive. It's an active, life-affirming ethical framework. And a key insight here is how the source says that iman, faith, is inherently morality itself. It defines iman as guvenveremek, guvenirmek, so to give trust, to trust, and to be trusted. It illustrates this beautifully by referring to Allah as el-mumin, the giver of trust. And the text clarifies Allah isn't mumin because he believes in something, but because he acts ethically, has these unwavering principles, and is completely responsible. It quotes Hud 56, "My Lord is on a straight path," which implies, infinite power is governed by these solid principles, not just whims.
Wow, infinite power bound by principles. That's a profound thought. And this leads to something else in the source that really challenges our assumptions. It's the distinction it draws between Hasbi and Hisabi ahlâk. Our source explains Hasbi ahlâk as acting responsibly, doing good purely because it is good, without expecting any reward or fearing any punishment.
Yeah.
It's selfless, that intrinsic motivation.
Right.
And then in stark contrast, you have Hisabi ahlâk,
Yeah.
described as like calculated or transactional morality, doing good only to gain heaven maybe, or avoiding bad only to escape hell. It even shares that anecdote about Abu Lahab, who tried to sort of bargain his faith with the prophet, basically wanting special treatment if you believe. Really highlights that transactional mindset.
It's a crucial distinction, yeah. And it really challenges our everyday ideas about what makes an action good, doesn't it? Which brings up an important question, something a lot of people grapple with. If true morality is selfless, then how does accountability, like the Day of Reckoning in Yasin 65, how does that fit in? Well, the source clarifies that belief and accountability ensures good behavior becomes alternative olmayan, an unavoidable way of life. Because every action, every single deed will eventually come to light. So this gives moral acts a lasting, deep source, something beyond just fleeting personal whims or, what's convenient right now.
Ah, okay. So accountability isn't about the transactions, it's about reinforcing this unavoidable commitment to good. Interesting. This whole discussion, selfless versus transactional, brings us to a broader question then. Is this kind of character or morality itself, is it inherently tied to one specific faith, one tradition? Our source looks into this, pointing to the Prophet Muhammad being described, I think it's in Kalam 4, as having a magnificent character even before he became a prophet. The text suggests this profound character was the very reason he was chosen as a messenger. So what does that suggest about morality being accessible to, everyone, regardless of their specific path?
It strongly suggests morality is fundamentally universal.
Yeah.
The source argues that Azim bir ahlâk, this magnificent character, it's synonymous with being principled. And crucially, it states very clearly, you don't need to be Muslim or even religious at all to be moral. However, it absolutely insists that being moral is a requirement for being Muslim. Immorality is essentially deemed godlessness, behaving as if divine accountability just doesn't exist, or even worse, twisting religion to try and legitimize unethical, unprincipled actions.
That's a really powerful statement. Immorality is godlessness, no matter what faith you claim. And the source then gives this strong warning about conditional morality. This is where you might be ethical towards, say, your family, your friends, your inner circle, but completely different towards strangers or people you don't like. The text cites an example presented in the source from Jewish theology, where lending with interest might be forbidden to another Jew, but allowed, maybe even multiplied for a non-Jew. The source calls this aslak, just outright immorality.
And this point really stands out because of its absolute focus on universal principles. True morality, the source stresses, has to be consistent, here or on the other side of the world. Your real moral character isn't shown by how you treat people you love or people who are like you. It's revealed in how you treat those you don't know or maybe even don't like. It directly quotes Nisa 135, urging believers to stand firmly for justice, even if it is against yourselves or your parents or your closest relatives. This is about impartial justice, compassion for everyone. Regardless of background, race, belief, anything, it really challenges us, to expand our circle of who counts.
It really does. It makes you reflect on how easily we can, maybe unconsciously, limit our empathy. So, if true morality demands this universality, what happens when we scale this up to whole societies? Our source, especially through Ahmet Kuru's insights, asks this provocative, maybe uncomfortable question. Are some societies actually more moral than others? Specifically, it brings up the perception that Western societies are often seen as, more successful in terms of societal morality than many Muslim-majority countries.
Right, and this is obviously a really nuanced area. Kuru starts by clarifying something important, how some conservative Muslims, as the source puts it, might confuse sin with immorality. The source states that every immorality is a sin, but not every sin is an immorality. That distinction is absolutely critical for understanding the comparison being made. For example, things like women traveling alone or listening to music. Some might see those as sins, sure, but they aren't necessarily immoral acts in that universal ethical sense. Getting that clarity helps us move past narrow definitions to talk about, universal standards.
Okay, that's an essential starting point. So beyond that distinction, our source then points to concrete examples of this perceived Western success in moral behavior. Things like better protection of human rights, even animal rights, a higher degree of trust in social life, where often someone's word is just accepted, strong adherence to rules, paying taxes, following traffic laws, not cheating in exams, stuff like that. It even mentions, kind of tellingly, how people fleeing difficult situations in Turkey often seek refuge in Western countries.
And connecting this to the bigger picture, the text offers 3 key reasons for this perceived success. First, what it calls a positive cycle. Widespread education, economic development, political stability, they reinforce each other. This contrasts with a vicious cycle of ignorance, poverty, and chaos seen elsewhere. Second, individual participation and rationality in making the rules. Citizens feel some ownership over laws made through democratic processes. They're rationally persuaded it's better for everyone, long-term, to follow them. And third, strong but limited institutions. This is crucial. The state is powerful enough to enforce rules, yes, but, and this is the key part, it's also bound by those same rules, which prevents arbitrary power and, ideally, rampant corruption.
That sounds like a framework really designed to cultivate moral behavior, systemically. And it contrasts sharply with challenges described in some Muslim-majority countries, where this monopolistic mentality, one ideology, state or religious, trying to control everything, can lead to unchecked immorality by those in power. Plus, a severe lack of trust in institutions, even between individuals, illustrated by those Turkish sayings like, "Don't trust your father," or "A snake that doesn't bite me can live 1,000 years." And even that disturbing one, "They steal but they work." Wow. It also points to a struggle to keep different spheres of life, like politics, religion, science, separate.
Which raises a really important question. How vital is the autonomy of these different spheres for a healthy moral environment? The source suggests that when everything's controlled by one single mentality, especially one focused on power, it actively hinders the development of independent moral codes, like, say, scientific ethics in universities or artistic integrity. They get stifled. Ultimately, Kuru's piece concludes that morality is a universal human value, and that Muslim-majority countries should actually learn from Western experiences, rather than dismissing them because of cultural or religious differences. It's about recognizing universal lessons that apply to human societies, everywhere.
That's a powerful argument for looking critically at societal structures, wherever you are. Now this next section, from Özgür Koca. This is particularly compelling. It asks a really tough question, one that might seem, counterintuitive after everything we've just said. How can religious people who believe in God in the afterlife, still act immorally?
It's truly fascinating, isn't it? Because while religion should, you'd think, provide fertile ground for morality, Koca identifies certain interpretations that can inadvertently create these traps that lead to immoral behavior, even among the devout. And these aren't just individual failings, he argues. They can be systemic issues in how faith gets understood and applied in a community or even a nation.
Yeah, what's striking about these traps is how often they seem to pivot on this subtle distortion, taking a core tenet of faith and twisting it into a justification for actions that actually contradict its moral spirit. Let's look at some. First, absolutism. Believing your interpretation is the only absolute truth. This can lead to this kind of arrogant sense of being God's representative on earth, which then shockingly justifies immoral acts as if they're actually God's will. Then there's utopianism, sacrificing morality now for some promised perfect future. Okay. The source mentions Trotsky reportedly seeing millions dying for revolution as a small price. But the core idea is human life becomes just a tool for some future ideal, even if it means, sacrificing the minority for the majority.
It's a really dangerous path, dismissing the present human cost for some theoretical future gain.
Yeah.
Another trap Koca identifies is the loss of the individual. Hannah Arendt's banality of evil idea comes in here. When group identity just completely overwhelms personal responsibility, individuals stop thinking for themselves, morally. Evil becomes disturbingly routine, not through actual malice, but just a lack of critical thought, just following the system.
So morality gets automated, almost, instead of being an active choice. Scary. Next on the list, chosenness. The belief that your group is specially selected for some mission. This can easily slide into justifying unethical favoritism, nepotism toward your own, thinking maybe our cause is higher, so the usual rules don't quite apply when we're helping our own people.
And related to that are these subtle linguistic traps, vagueness or muazzam. This is when religious guidance on core moral principles just isn't detailed enough. This ambiguity can become a trap. It allows exceptions to ethical rules to become normalized, like that saying, they steal but they work, which just warps the whole understanding of what's acceptable.
That's such a dangerous normalization, isn't it? Slippery slope. And then there are gaps. Bosluk? Silences in interpretations on critical issues, let's say women's rights. The danger here is, if something isn't explicitly forbidden, it can be wrongly treated as permissible, even if it's deeply unethical, just because the text is silent on that specific point.
Precisely. And maybe one of the most horrifying traps is where violence and immorality get presented as mercy or purification. The source mentions ISIS justifying killings as a form of cleansing. It's this twisted logic where they genuinely believe they're doing good. It's the ultimate inversion of morality.
It's deeply unsettling how interpretations can warp intentions like that. Okay, so we've talked about group dynamics, subverting personal ethics, linguistic loopholes. What's the next layer of these subtle dangers Koca points out?
He also points to the system problem. The lack of robust legal and political systems to actually uphold justice and resolve disagreements fairly. This can seriously undermine individual morality. It shows that good systems are just as crucial as good people for a moral society. If injustice is everywhere and seems rewarded, individual efforts can feel, well, pretty futile.
That makes total sense. A system rewarding immorality will inevitably breed more of it. Then there's emotion pumping, an over-reliance on emotion in religious teaching rather than reason. Morality, the source argues, needs rational analysis. Focusing purely on emotion can actually hinder consistent, universal moral action.
Right. And another critical trap, the close relationship between state and power. When religion gets too tangled up with state power, it risks being used, instrumentalized. It can end up endorsing state-sponsored immorality, losing its independent moral compass. History is sadly full of examples.
Yeah, unfortunately. Finally, we land on dualism, creating a dark enemy, dividing the world into us versus them. This worldview can then justify abandoning all moral responsibility towards the other because they're seen as inherently bad, or maybe less than human. It's the ultimate justification for that conditional morality we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So what does all this mean for you listening? These traps reveal that even with strong belief, critical reflection on how we interpret and apply our faith is absolutely essential. The source highlights that applying moral rules with double standards, different rules for kids versus adults or rich versus poor, that's a clear symptom of this problematic dualism. It really emphasizes that true moral principles have to apply universally to everyone, simply because they are human beings.
Wow, what a journey through this profound connection, or sometimes disconnection, between faith and morality. From Iman itself being about trust and ethics, to that critical difference between selfless and calculated good deeds, and then examining how universal morality really demands we treat everyone justly, not just our own little group.
Yeah, and seeing how societal structures, strong but limited institutions, individual participation, a culture of reason, how they can foster ethical behavior, while also acknowledging these powerful, almost insidious traps in religious interpretations that can, ironically, lead straight to immorality. It really makes you consider the nuances, doesn't it? What it truly means to be a moral person and live in a moral society.
This deep dive definitely reveals that morality is about a consistent, principled stance, applied universally, rooted in responsibility, and ideally driven by that selfless desire for good itself. It's a challenging pursuit for sure, but an essential one for all of us, no matter our background.
Ultimately, yeah, this deep dive shows morality isn't just about grand beliefs. It's about constant critical vigilance against the subtle ways our own interpretations might, ironically, lead us astray, even with the best intentions. It's really a lifelong process, refining our understanding and how we actually apply it.
So here's a thought for you to carry forward from all this. If true morality is tested by how you treat those who are not like you, what's maybe one area in your own life where you could consciously try to expand your circle of ethical consideration? Apply those universal principles just a bit more broadly. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep striving for that magnificent character.